Having been gone for so long, it's nice to be up on a beautiful day like today and to see all these modern looking people and getting, what are these things, these long strings that they tie to you? I'm not quite sure what this is all about. My name is Samuel Bowles Jr., and I was born in 1797 and lived much of my life from 1824 to 1851 at 62 School Street. There are some pictures being passed around here. You'll be able to see some of these pictures. I can trace my family back to 1640 in Old New England. My wife was descended from Miles Standish. I started the Springfield Weekly Republican in 1824. It was a single-page newspaper. In 1844, my son, Samuel III, wanted to start a daily paper. I said, okay, but he'd have to run it himself. At that time, there were no advertisers, just subscribers. The daily had a subscription of 200 people to start, but 5 years later, it had over 800 subscribers. I died in 1851, and the Republican was taken over by my 25-year-old son, Samuel III, who was born in 1826. My name is Samuel Bowles III. As my father has said, I entered the publishing business when I was 17. I wanted to go to college, but my father didn't think that was necessary for a printer, which is what he wanted me to be. I was not very good at that trade, but I was good at persuasion and I was a good listener. I started the daily paper at age 17 and was publisher of both papers by the time I was 25. I married Mary Sanford Dwight Schermerhorn, whose grandfather was James Dwight of Springfield. Because I had not gone to college, I wanted to be sure that my children did. My son Samuel IV went to Yale. I am best known as the publisher of the Springfield Republican. By the 1850s, we were one of the leading newspapers in New England. We supported anti-slavery and women's suffrage. We were a very progressive and influential newspaper. We were instrumental in starting the Republican Party, and we supported Abraham Lincoln for president. I was known as an honest, impartial editor. It was said that Bowles published the truth as he saw it. I was proud also that young journalists found their time worthwhile at the Republican. One went on to become the editor of the New York Times, another one the editor of the Boston Post. By 1855, the Daily Republican grew to 2 sheets, 2 pages, and had 5,000 daily and 10,000 weekly subscribers. It was the largest New England newspaper outside of Boston. My advice to writers was, put it all in the first sentence. Don't suppose anyone will read through 6 lines of bad rhetoric to get a crumb of news at the end. I guess that's accurate. The New York Tribune said, it is the best and ablest country journal published in this continent. My health was always poor, so I partnered with Dr. Josiah Gilbert Holland, who would oversee the paper while I often traveled for my health. Let's talk about what you modern people talk about. This is my friendship with Emily Dickinson of Amherst, Mass. I was close friends with her brother Austin and his wife Susan, who lived at the Evergreens, which is the house next door to Emily Dickinson's in Amherst. I was a frequent visitor as I was on the board of trustees of Amherst College. It was here that I became friends with Emily. We exchanged correspondence for years. She sent me over 40 of her poems and over 50 letters. Some have said that our relationship was one of the most significant in her life. She seemed to trust me enough to share her deepest troubles. I have never published any of the poems she sent to me as a friend, but the Republican did publish 7 poems, maybe the only ones ever published before her death. Susan Dickinson said, "Bowles' presence at our house seemed to enrich and widen life for us, a creator of endless perspectives." I prefer this description over others who called me a perfectionist, intense, combative, erratic, rarely admitted error, thin-skinned. You modern people and historians have speculated about the nature of my relationship with Emily. Let them do all that they want. A gentleman would never comment. Oh, my house, I must speak of it. We lived at 182 Central Street, a magnificent Italian-style house built in 1853 by architect Henry Sykes. We moved into the house in 1864, and I spent the rest of my life there, and we raised our children there. I am told this home eventually became the McDuffie School in the 1980s, and it was listed on the National Register of Historic Places in 1974. Despite the effort of the Springfield Preservation Trust, the court fights that went on all the way to the state Supreme Court to try to save this famous Bowles house. But McDuffie destroyed the mansion in 1980 to build much needed tennis courts. They were never built. The lot is still empty. So my poor health took me in 1878. My name is Samuel Bowles IV. I took over as editor of the Republican upon my father's death. I married Elizabeth Hoare in 1884, and we lived in a magnificent stick-style home on Crescent Hill. My name is Samuel Bowles V. I was a journalist in Boston. I took over the newspaper when my father died. My name is Sherman Bowles. I took over the Republican when my father, Samuel V, died. I'd worked in newspapers in Philadelphia, but returned in 1915 to take over the Republican. So thank you all for coming and allowing us to share our lives with you. Think of us as you go through the streets and parks and schools named in our memory. Bowles Street, Bowles Field, Bowles Park, and Bowles School. Thank you for attending.